The lazier you are at these 5 things, the happier you'll be in old age. Welcome to the Talk with John channel, your go-to place for great stories and helpful advice after 60. I am John. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on more important conversations. I'm 68 years old, and after more than 40 years working in health and wellness counseling for middle-aged men, I've come to realize something quite interesting. Happiness in our later years doesn't always come from doing more. Sometimes it actually comes from doing less. Sounds a little backwards, doesn't it? But stay with me. Grab yourself a warm cup of tea, get comfortable, and let me share with you 5 things that the more you let go of, the more peaceful, lighter, and happier your life becomes. 1. Stop worrying about what others think and start living more freely. You know, one of the things that exhausted me most when I was younger was constantly living under other people's gaze. I'd choose what to wear out of fear someone might say I looked outdated. I'd hesitate to crack a joke in case someone misunderstood me. There were even moments I didn't dare do what I truly wanted, just because I was thinking, what if they think I'm weird? Looking back now, I realize how much energy I wasted, and I know I'm not the only one who's felt that way. There's a psychological concept called the spotlight effect, studied by psychologists at Cornell University. It means we often overestimate how much people are paying attention to us. In one study, students were asked to wear an embarrassing t-shirt and walk into a crowded room. Most of them thought everyone was staring, but in reality, only a small percentage of people even noticed anything unusual. In other words, people aren't thinking about us nearly as much as we think they are. I remember one morning an older gentleman named George, 72, came to see me looking tense. He said, "I don't want to go walking outside anymore. Every time I walk a little slower, I feel like my neighbors think I'm weak." I looked at him and gently asked, "Do you remember noticing anyone walking yesterday?" He smiled awkwardly. "Honestly, I didn't notice anyone." I nodded. "That's how it is for everyone else too, George. We're all too busy dealing with our own lives to judge someone else's pace. We often feel like we're standing center stage, but in reality, the audience is checking their phones or worrying about paying their bills." More importantly, I've come to believe this. The more we mature, the more we realize that living for other people's opinions is a race with no finish line. If you're always trying to avoid criticism or please everyone, you'll never truly live for yourself. There was a woman I once spoke with, Marcia, 69, widowed for nearly a decade. She told me how devastated she felt when her relatives gossiped about her after she started dating again. But then, she made a powerful choice. She stopped caring. She said to me, "John, I realized they're not the ones sleeping in an empty bed every night, so why should I live by their standards?" I deeply admire Marcia for that. She chose to live for herself, not through the lens of others' judgments. Now, I'm not saying we should be selfish, but I do believe that at a certain age, you don't need anyone's permission to be who you truly are. Wear what makes you comfortable. Say what you honestly feel. Kindly, of course. Do what brings you joy, regardless of what anyone else might think. And remember this, no one else is living your life for you. No one else will suffer your pain when you're unwell, and no one else will feel your joy if you keep forcing yourself to meet their expectations. So why not let go of the burden of what will people think? You'll breathe easier, live more authentically, and yes, feel a whole lot happier. 2, letting go of draining relationships. Save your energy for what truly matters. There's something I believe we all come to realize once we hit our 60s or 70s. Not every relationship is meant to be held on to. When I was younger, I tried hard to maintain a friendship with an old college buddy. We'd been close for years, shared a lot of history, but over time, every catch-up felt exhausting. The conversations revolved around complaints, comparisons, and, truthfully, whatever connection we once had was long gone. I kept reaching out, partly out of old loyalty, and partly because I thought letting go made me a bad person. But then it hit me. Real connection doesn't come from holding on. It comes from both people wanting to stay. There's a quote I really love. When you stop holding on to those who no longer want to stay, you make room for those who truly value you to come in. That's not just true for friendships. It applies to family too. I once counseled a woman named Ruth, 66 years old. She told me she was always the one organizing family get-togethers, calling to check in, sending birthday gifts. But lately no one responded. Some even seemed bothered by her efforts. She said, "I feel like I'm begging for affection." And then she asked me, "Should I keep trying?" I gently replied, "If a plant is withered and dry and you keep watering it, will it bloom again? Or is it better to take care of the plants that are still growing?" She went quiet for a moment, then gave a soft, bittersweet smile. Science backs this up too. A study from the University of Michigan found that older adults who invest their time in positive, meaningful relationships, rather than trying to maintain superficial or one-sided ones, report higher levels of satisfaction and emotional well-being. What does that mean for you and me? It means you don't need a long contact list, dozens of family members checking in, or constant calls to feel fulfilled. You just need the right people, those who listen, respect you, and let you be fully yourself. I have a little rule of thumb that served me well. Maybe it'll help you too. If you walk away from a conversation feeling lighter, that's someone worth keeping in your life. If you feel drained or heavy, maybe it's time to let that one go. Letting go doesn't mean cutting someone off or holding a grudge. It simply means you stop putting in effort all by yourself. You're not 20 or 30 anymore. Your energy is precious, and it should go to relationships that bring peace, not the ones that slowly wear you down. And I truly believe this. At any age, being able to be yourself in the presence of people who love you, that's one of the quietest yet deepest forms of happiness. 3. Stop trying to change others, and you'll find peace within. If there's one mistake I've made, and seen countless others make too, it's this: believing that we can and should change other people. Back when I was counseling full-time, I met plenty of husbands frustrated because their wives complained too much, and wives who were miserable because their husbands never opened up. There were parents heartbroken because their kids were lazy, careless, or refused to listen. I'd often say to them, "You can plant the seed, water it, and care for it, but you can't force it to bloom before it's ready." This is a trap so many of us fall into, especially with the people we love. But love doesn't mean fixing. Love means understanding our own limits and respecting someone else's journey. I'll never forget a man named Martin, 74, whom I once worked with. He was constantly worried about his 35-year-old son, still not man enough, as he put it. No stable job, no family, no direction. Martin tried everything: advice, pressure, even subtle interference in his son's relationships. But it always led to arguments and growing distance between them. Then one day Martin called me, sounding sad but clear-headed. "John, I think I've been making things harder for him. I've been trying to force him to live by my version of success, not his." From that moment, Martin stepped back. No more micromanaging, no more lecturing, just listening. And a few months later, his son started calling more often, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Accepting people as they are, instead of who we want them to be, isn't giving up. It's growing up. I once read a piece from Harvard Health Publishing that said, "Trying to change close family members can lead to chronic stress and long-term strain on both mental health and relationships. But when we learn to accept, both sides feel less pressure and communication improves." Put simply, you can't make someone live healthier if they're not ready. You can't force someone to be optimistic if they haven't yet learned to face their pain. You can't pass down life wisdom if the other person isn't open to hearing it. But what you can do is lead by example. Live fully, be steady, be kind, and wait patiently for them to come into the light in their own time. Because the truth is, when you stop trying to change others, you free yourself first. And more importantly, you allow yourself to live more gently, more completely, and with far less frustration. Everyone moves at their own pace. You don't have to chase after them. You don't have to drag them forward. Your job is to live well and be the quiet, steady place they can turn to when they're ready. 4. Stop chasing people who don't value you, and you'll remember your own worth. There's a simple yet profound quote I once heard: "If you have to chase someone just to keep them in your life, they were probably never really there to begin with." And the older I get, the more I realize just how true that is, especially as we age. When I was younger, I believed the more relationships I could hold on to, the more lovable I must be. So I was always the one to reach out first, send the text, plan the gathering, smooth things over, make the effort. But with time, I started to see the pattern. There are some relationships where no matter how much you give, the other person stays distant. I remember a woman I counseled named Elaine, 65, widowed, and with grown children that lived far away. She told me she was always the one inviting her daughter to lunch, calling to check in, even sending meals to her house. But after years of being the only one initiating, Elaine started to feel hurt. She only replies when I message first. She's never just called to ask, "How are you doing, Mom?" I didn't give advice right away. Instead, I asked her, "What do you think would happen if you stopped messaging? If you stopped sending things?" She went quiet. A few seconds later, her eyes welled up. Probably nothing would happen at all. And she was right. When Elaine stopped reaching out, everything fell silent. But surprisingly, she also felt lighter. Now, I'm not saying we should become or bitter, but I truly believe this. Real relationships don't need to be chased. They're mutual, warm, and naturally reciprocal. There's a study from AARP, the American Association of Retired Persons, that found over 40% of older adults feel like they're the ones keeping their relationships alive, and they're not getting the same in return. That kind of imbalance can take a toll on your self-esteem, emotional health, and sense of belonging. In a world where everyone's busy, always rushing, with endless reasons not to reply, we have to learn to invest in the people who want to be present. I have a personal rule that I often share with others. If someone doesn't reach out after you stop messaging, don't waste your sadness on them. If someone only comes around when they need something, that's not connection, that's convenience. If someone only appreciates you when you're trying extra hard, that's not a fair relationship. But here's the beauty of stepping back. When you stop chasing, stop carrying the whole weight of a connection, you begin to recognize your own worth again. You start to notice the old friend who checks in regularly. You appreciate the neighbor who always invites you for a walk in the evening. You begin to invest your time and energy into the relationships that bring peace, not pressure. So maybe today is the day to take that first step. Stop chasing those who don't value you and start standing beside the ones who've always been there, even when you weren't trying. 5. Stop trying to control everything, and you'll finally start living fully. I used to be the kind of person who liked to control everything. Not because I was difficult, but because I thought, if I don't take care of it, who will? If I don't plan ahead, what if something goes wrong? From little things like making sure dinner was on time, to bigger things like money, health, and my children's future, I wanted everything in order, all the time. But one day I realized something. The more I tried to control everything, the more exhausted I felt, and life still didn't go as planned. I remember my 60th birthday. I planned every detail, the guest list, the food, the schedule, even the background music. But on the day of the party, it rained. The cake was late, and a few people didn't show up like they said they would. I was on the verge of getting upset until I saw my wife sitting under the awning, laughing with friends, next to a soggy tray of cake. She looked at me and waved, smiling. "Honey, it's your birthday, not a United Nations summit. Relax." And in that moment it clicked. I'd spent too much of my life trying to control things, when happiness was already there, if only I'd let go enough to enjoy it. Science agrees too. A study from Stanford University found that older adults who learn to let go of what they can't control tend to report higher levels of happiness, inner freedom, and overall well-being. It's no coincidence that many older folks you meet seem so at ease, always saying things like, "What will be, will be." They're not careless. They've simply mastered the art of going with the flow. They understand. You can't control the weather, but you can bring an umbrella. You can't control what others think, but you can control how you respond. You can't stop time from passing, but you can savor every moment you're in. I think of a dear friend, Leonard, now 82. He used to be a surgeon, a profession where precision was everything. But in retirement, he became one of the calmest, most peaceful men I know. One day I asked him his secret. He just smiled and said, "The older I get, the more I realize life isn't about managing everything. It's about knowing what's worth holding on to, what needs to be let go, and what's better left to drift quietly away." Chilnum, if you've been feeling tired, trying to hold everything together, looking after the grandkids, managing the house, worrying about your health, or carrying the emotions of those around you, I encourage you to step back. You might realize life doesn't need you to be the gatekeeper of everything. Sometimes it just needs you to be a guest and enjoy the party your way. In the end, happiness in our later years isn't about how much we can control. It's about how much we're willing to release. Live gently, live sincerely, and live fully with yourself. If you've journeyed with me through these 5 parts, let me say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. I truly believe that growing older isn't a decline, it's a chance to live more honestly, more deeply, and more freely than ever before. Thank you for listening to an old man named John, with a heart that still has stories left to tell. See you in the next. You deserve love and joy at every stage of life. Thank you for watching Talk with John channel. I am John.